Volume 1, Section 3, Video 1. Welcome again in this Learning Microsoft Azure course from Pact Publishing. We've now arrived at Section 3, which is the last section in this volume, talking about Azure Resource Manager templates. In this section, we're going to take a look at deploying community-based templates out of GitHub, which is somehow a recap of one of the previous videos, and then zooming in a little bit more on what it takes to create your own customized ARM templates. So it's not really using pre-configured templates from GitHub or the Azure Quick Start, but really starting from a scratch, fresh template and showing you how you can create one yourself. In the other section in this video, I'm going to handle the automation of the deployment of your Azure virtual machines by using configuration management. Now let me start with the first part in this section, deploying community templates. In this video, we're going to take a look at the structure of an ARM template, followed by deploying an Azure Quick Start template from GitHub, or using another approach by connecting to the Azure Quick Start templates. Now before zooming in on how deployment actually works, I want to spend a couple of minutes why it's important to understand the structure of an ARM template. In short, an ARM template, and by the way ARM stands for Azure Resource Manager, an ARM template allows you to deploy, manage and control all resources within your Azure resource group, or multiple resource groups or multiple Azure subscriptions. It also allows you to repeat the deployment of a resource you already configured before. Imagine you start from a template where you deploy a virtual machine with certain characteristics, and then you want to redeploy an identical virtual machine using an identical configuration. By just making some minor changes to the ARM template, you can pretty easily redeploy an identical virtual machine. And that's the true purpose and power of using ARM templates. An ARM template allows you to use declarative templates or using imperative scripts. It also defines the dependencies between a script and a resource. And if you're using tagging, then out of your ARM template, you can use Azure Resource Tagging for example, getting a better view on billing and reporting. In one of the previous videos in this course, I already quickly talked about JSON files. Now a JSON file is nothing more than a text file, and this text file reflects the actual ARM template. In the core, the basic structure is always based on two files, Azure deploy.json, and then obviously nothing blocks you from renaming the file, but the default is always deploy.json, and the second file is called deploy.parameters.json. Deployment also supports multiple parameter JSON files, which provide links to each other, so you can really build pretty complex architectures. From within the JSON file itself, the screenshot on the left-hand side shows you the structure to deploy Azure Site Recovery with a couple of parameters and settings, where the second approach is using PowerShell and then pointing to the resource group name and pointing to the JSON file structure. Now before we dive into the JSON files itself, let me again show you how easy it is to deploy from an Azure Quick Start. Azure Quick Start is a medium. It's a repository of about 400 to 500 pre-configured Azure JSON file templates, allowing you to easily deploy Azure resources. So in my opinion, and I mentioned this already before, it can be used as a good start for customizing your own ARM templates. What you're doing is connecting to the Azure Quick Start website within GitHub, going to one of the template files, downloading them, and then deploying them right away, or if you want, customizing and redeploying from there on. The second approach is not connecting to GitHub, but using the azure.com website. On the azure.com website resources section, you'll find Quick Start templates, from where the same concept comes back. You download the template and run the deployment from the template itself, or similar to the second approach, you download the ARM template files, customize them, and then pushing them out again by using Visual Studio or PowerShell. Another interesting feature that came live a couple of months ago is a community-based website called armviz.io, giving you a graphical view of your JSON ARM template. That's it. I think it's about time to jump again to another demo, in which I will show you what it takes to deploy an Azure resource based on an ARM template out of GitHub. So from my browser, I'm connecting to Azure Quick Start Templates. Maybe you remember the location from the previous video, where I deployed a more complex virtual machine structure. I'm not going to show you again how it's actually done to deploy the resource, but what I wanted to show you here is just zooming in a little bit more on how it works to copy the JSON file templates and then using them for deploying a virtual machine. So let me reuse my Active Directory example from before. What it does here is giving you the Azure deploy JSON file as well as the Azure deploy parameters JSON file. If you select the file, it will show you the complete structure of the JSON file. Then from here, you select raw, and then you can basically do a copy paste, opening it up in a notepad, and then easily storing on your desktop, giving it a name, Azure something deploy.json. Then I'm going to do the same for the parameters file. And saving this one as Azure deploy parameters JSON file. Now in this quick demo, I'm using Notepad because it's just easy to use. I could do the same from Visual Studio or using Visual Studio Code, or if you want, like Notepad++, which is a free and a bit more intelligent Notepad-like solution, or any other text editor you want to use. So I'm going to open up these two files from here. Now imagine that you want to deploy your own Active Directory domain controller. So you start from GitHub Quick Start Template, you download the JSON files, and then you can update them to basically any setting you want for your specific environment. Like in this example here, it pre-configures a virtual network with a network name AD-VNet and a specific subnet attached to it. Now let's say I want to change the name of this VNet. I'm going to name this one Packed AD-VNet, and then changing my subnet from the 10.0 something to 192.168 something. Then all it takes is changing these values, and I basically have my new customized JSON file. It should be clear that nothing blocks you from updating all the other settings, but I'm not going to spend too much time on updating the JSON files here. The same goes for passwords and unique username and my domain name. Within my Azure deploy parameters file, you will recognize generic info like admin user. The value gen user actually points to Azure. That's giving you a generic username. Or as I showed you before from Visual Studio, allowing you to customize the parameters from there. Another approach is natively directly entering the password and the username here, but obviously storing passwords in a clear text file like a JSON file isn't really recommended. So this is just one example on how you can reuse GitHub, not just for directly deploying the resource, but also for basically updating and learning how to create your own customized JSON files. Which brings me to the invitation for the next video, creating your own custom ARM templates, so taking it one step further.